Hi, my name is Jennifer Rohr. I live in Westville, Indiana. It sounds country because it is. I wasn't raised in the country, but my mom's family is from Tennessee, so I am no stranger. I am an at-home mom. I have 4 children, ages 20, 14, 4, and 2. I worked as a nurse's aide and outreach coordinator, and then I worked in the prison as an addictions recovery specialist. That was my goal, to be in addictions and recovery. But I left my job to have my last baby and to continue my education. On the next slide, I'm going to jump right into my overarching goals. You'll see a picture of a lady consoling another lady. Overarching goals means a bigger goal with underlying sub-goals. My biggest goal is to become a counselor. The sub-goal for me is to be a better communicator. Actually, I always want to better myself as a communicator, but being a counselor, communication is key. It's the whole job. So the most important sub-goal is to be able to communicate, speaking, and listening to my best ability. On the next slide, you'll see a scary picture with hands. And I am talking about my past and why I have to reach this overarching goal. Most of my childhood, I felt sick most of the time. I had migraines and nausea. I think I felt a lot of stress from my family dynamics. Later, I tried to cut the strings with my family and bond with friends. Because of who I was, I formed relationships with others like me with low self-esteem, and we got into bad things like drugs and alcohol and other things that aren't good, and it led for me into addiction. I'm being vague because I want to keep the focus on why I want to reach my overarching goal rather than delivering an emotional story. One day, when the timing was perfect and the stars were aligned, I accepted God's offer. I said, yes, I will follow you. This is why I have to become a counselor. I have to. It's my purpose. It's my overarching goal. It's been 12 years, and I'm still burning going that way. To keep it relevant, I need to master my skills in communication. I have to be able to self-evaluate and remain empathetic. I have to think back on the talker-listener cards. They are so helpful, and they make it easier to communicate. On the next slide, you will see a picture of 2 people sitting on a beach. It reminded me of enlarging my conversation. The number one thing I'm going to take with me from this class is empathy. Listening with empathy. Empathetic listening helps me to understand the other person. That's the most important thing. This was pointed out to me when I had problems in my relationship with my daughter. I needed to focus on her, not my own feelings. And when I'm listening, I think about where the other person is coming from and what message are they wanting me to hear. So, to listen with empathy, to be non-judgmental, and to enlarge my conversation are my main points. Listening with empathy was addressed, and so the next thing, to be non-judgmental. This is really hard because I thought I was non-judgmental, and apparently, it has been pointed out to me in the way I've reacted, responded, behaved, whatever it was in my communication, I have acted judgmental, and I really do need to work on that. I need to understand what looks judgmental to other people, because maybe it doesn't look like that to me, but it does to others, and that's really not where I'm coming from, and I don't want to portray that. And enlarging my conversation, I really researched this idea. I found an article by Henry Herman. It was called Enlarging the Conversation, and what he did was he brought a bunch of different religions together and got their opinion on a subject. The subject was interdisciplinary conversation, and the reason that he got all these different religions, for example, Judaism, Catholicism, Protestant, all these religions together to gain their perspective. They all wrote essays about their perspective on that certain subject, was to get that enlarged perspective, that was enlarging the conversation, getting it out of what just I know, but all of these opinions. So that was enlarging it. On the next slide, let's see, you see a picture of hands there with an ear and a mouth, and what I wanted to address here was listening and speaking skills. To listen, I am calm enough to hear the problem. I don't own the problem. To provide safety, to understand, to clarify without disagreeing, agreeing, defending, or advising. And when speaking, I'm bothered, I own the problem. I'm bothered, but I own the problem. But I want to share my feelings, to share my faults without accusing, attacking, labeling, or judging. I learned that in our textbooks by Peterson. That was a really good book. That was one of my favorites. On the next slide, I'm getting into behavioral background and behavioral blend. This was extensive. This took up a lot of my time trying to really understand what this all meant. And basically, when I did the test, my report gave me a C, which means I'm passive and task oriented. All the things that were labeled under a C was, I think people expect me to be cautious and calculating. I am uncomfortable when people are not compliant. I am conscientious. I cannot say that word. I am conscientious. I am conscientious. I am the planner and organizer of projects, and I am passive and task oriented, and I care more about fixing things than about building relationships. And those are the things that I pulled from that report that I thought was true about me. On the next slide, it talks about the personality blend continued. The personality blend, which you get a main letter, which is C, but the next thing is they give you all the letters, and mine came out in the order of C, D, S. And what the report said about this that I agreed with about myself is a CDS would be passive and task oriented first. D would be active and task oriented second, and S is passive and people oriented. So that was like the order of me. So these are things that I agreed about from the report: direct, submissive, and competent; passive with dominant ways; active and decisive; sweet and sensitive; absolutely cannot sit still, that is definitely me; and planner, but I don't communicate it well, which is true. I think I'm communicating it well, but my feedback lets me know that I'm not. On the next slide, my thinking, my feelings. This is from Uniquely You also, the report that I had gotten back. My thinking and my feeling: I think I can do anything I put my mind to, which is true. I sometimes doubt myself, which is very true. I am introverted, which is almost disabling sometimes. I am that introverted, and I struggle with my occasional negative thinking, which I think we all do. On the next slide, which I have to say, I really like my slide designs. I just want to throw that in there. I like my slides. I like my PowerPoint. This is really nice. And I would say this to my audience, so I'm going to go ahead and just say it. Maybe I'd get a laugh. My vision and passion. My vision is, and this is according to Uniquely You, my vision and passion is widespread and focused. I flip back and forth with seeking a secure, stable environment. I don't need people to make me feel comfortable. I don't like people to be disappointed in me, which, again, I think is true for most of us. I don't think that we like people to be disappointed in us as just people. People don't like that. That's a bad feeling. But I want to say about I flip back and forth with seeking a secure, stable environment. I just don't like to feel stuck. So I think that's why I do a lot of my flipping. On the next slide, it talks about communication barriers. My personal communication barriers are: I have too many feelings when it's personal, when I'm uninterested, and when I am more concerned about myself. So if I'm thinking about myself, or it's too personal, or the feelings are all on me and I'm not focusing on who is speaking, that is a big barrier. Next, the slide says my action plans. My personal action plans are to become a more empathetic listener, a more sensitive and thoughtful speaker, and be aware of my own thoughts, feelings, and judgments.